Soldier's Heart by Gary Paulson. Foreword. War is always, in all ways, appalling. Lives are stopped in youth, worlds are ended, and even for those who survive, and the vast majority of soldiers who go to war do survive, the mental damage done is often permanent. What they have seen and been forced to do is frequently so horrific and devastating that it simply cannot be tolerated by the human psyche. Now there is an attempt to understand this form of injury and deal with it. It is called post-traumatic stress disorder by those who try to cure it. They give it a technical name in the attempt to make something almost incomprehensible understandable, in the hope that by doing this they will make it curable. But in other times and other wars, they used more descriptive terms. In the Second World War, the mental damage was called battle fatigue, and there were rudimentary efforts to help the victims. These usually involved bed rest and the use of sedatives or other drugs. In the First World War, it was called shell shock, based on the damage done by the overwhelming use for the first time in modern war of artillery fire against soldiers in stationary positions, trenches. The concussion of exploding incoming rounds, thousands upon thousands of them, often left men deaf and dazed, many of them with a symptom called the 1,000-yard stare. The afflicted were essentially not helped at all, and simply sent home for their families to care for. Most were irrational, many were in a vegetative state. In the Civil War, the syndrome was generally not recognized at all. While the same horrors existed in those in modern war, in some ways they were even worse, because the technological aspect of war being born then, the wholesale killing by men using raw firepower, was so new and misunderstood. The same young men were fed into the madness. But in those days, there was no scientific knowledge of mental disorders, and no effort was made to help the men who were damaged. Some men came through combat unscathed. Most did not. These men were somehow different from other men. They were said to have soldier's heart. Permission was granted for this recording by the publisher.